All right, cool. So we're gonna finish out the muscular system, which is where we left off. Origin, where the tendon of a muscle is anchored, is usually on the more stable bone closer to the trunk. Trunk is your body core. Insertion is a tendon is attached to the more movable bone and distal away from the trunk. So pretty much like if like using my uh, humerus, a humerus bone, a humerus muscle, which would be my biceps brachial. The insertion would be up on my humerus, and insertion point would be that on my ulnar bone, because it's more distal and close, and the humerus more close to the trunk. Anyway, so reversal of muscle action is pretty much when a more movable end becomes less movable, and when the origin now moves towards the insertion. Normally, the insertion moves towards the origin, but in reversal of muscle action, the origin then moves towards the insertion. Yeah, just remember those keywords. Kinetic chains. Closed kinetic chain is the distal segment is fixed and the proximal segment moves. So pretty much your proximal segment would be your trunk. So like if I was doing a push-up, my distal is fixed and my trunk is moving. So that would be a closed kinetic chain. Open kinetic chain is the opposite. Pretty much your proximal segment is fixed, so your trunk is fixed, and your distal segment moves. So that's like saying I'm doing lateral raises. Boom. My distal part is moving, and my proximal stays fixed. Muscles are made of fibers. There's two types of different type of muscular fibers, which is parallel fibers, which tend to be longer and has a greater range of motion potential. Oblique fibers tend to be shorter, has more numerous fibers, and has less range of motion, but has greater strength potential. The types of parallel fibers would be a strap fiber, which is long, thin fibers that run the length of the muscles. Forcerome fibers, which is shaped like a spindle, which is pretty much like your fiber that would be in your biceps, and both ends attached to a tendon. A rhomboid fiber, which is four-sided, which is flat with broad attachments. A triangular fiber would be flat, thin, shaped fiber that radiate with narrow attachments. Onto the oblique fibers, which is your unipinnate fiber, which looks like a one-sided feather. A bipinnate fiber, which looks like a full feather. And a multi-pinnate fiber, which has many tendons with oblique fibers in between. We're going to go on to contractions. There's isometric contractions, which your muscle is contracting without any joint movement. So if you was holding a weight and you're just holding it there, your muscles are contracting, but there's no joint movement. Isotonic contractions is when your muscles are contracting with joint movement, and there's two types. There's concentric, which is pretty much when your muscle shortens and it works against gravity. So I did a bicep curl. I'm going against gravity. My biceps is shortening. Eccentric would be your muscles lengthen, so you're going down, and it's going with gravity, but you're controlling it. Your agonist would be your prime mover, which is pretty much your muscle that's causing the motion, and your antagonist would be the opposite motion of the agonist, which is usually the relaxed muscle. So you know, bicep curl again. My agonist would be my biceps brachial, and my antagonist would be my triceps. But if you go down, it switches. Now your triceps is controlling the down movement, and your biceps is relaxed. Stabilizers, which is muscle groups that support, makes firm, and allows agonists to work more efficiently. Your neutralizer is a contraction that prevents unwanted movements. And Contraction is the agonist and antagonist are contracting together. Normal resting length is pretty much the length of a muscle when unstimulated. Irritability is when the muscle's ability to respond to stimulus. Contractibility is the ability to shorten or contract, and extendability is the ability to lengthen or extend. And your elastability would be the ability to recoil or return to normal resting position. Tension is a built-up force within a muscle. Some components of tension would be passive tension, which is pretty much stretching a muscle, and active tension, which is releasing that stretch. Tone is the slight tension that is always present in a muscle. It's always present. Tone. It's always present in a muscle. Excursion is the distance from maximum elongation to maximum shortening. Active insufficiency is the point at which a muscle can not shorten any further, which occurs with the agonist. So pretty much active insufficiency. So I'm flexing my biceps. I cannot shorten my muscle any further than this. That is passive insufficiency. Active insufficiency. Boom. Get it? Passive insufficiency is when a muscle cannot be elongated any further without damage to fibers, which occurs to the agonist. So when I go down, my agonist okay, so passive insufficiency occurs to the antagonist. 9 out of 10. Anyway, so if you're stretching a muscle, it cannot be stretched any further or elongated any further, and that's passive insufficiency. The angle of pull is when muscles have a diagonal line of pull, and the resultant force of vertical and horizontal force. Muscles have the most strength when stretched prior to contracting. And that's pretty much for muscular. We're going to go to our nervous systems next.